Let's watch the story of how Ukrainian tanks from the 93rd Mechanized Brigade cleared the village of Vesele in the Pokrovsk direction, which had been taken by Russian infantry. When the Ukrainian army arrived at the village, it had already been captured by Russian infantry, and they were moving around as if it were their own homes, acting freely without anyone stopping them. The reconnaissance unit reported the situation to the troops. The problem was serious. Russians had to be pushed out of the village. Ukrainian tanks fully camouflaged their vehicles. Since they already knew the area, they went around the village from the safest direction and entered. Their mission was to drive out the occupiers and then completely clear the village. They would act based on information coming from FPV drones. This operation would be carried out in 2 stages by 2 teams. First, the Russians would be pushed out, and then the infantry would clear the area. As soon as they entered the village, suddenly Russian infantry started to move. They began firing at the tanks all at once. Attacks were coming from basements of buildings and narrow paths. It seemed the Russian forces had planned to occupy and capture the village, but apparently had no plan for what came after. They attacked in a disorganized way. According to the reconnaissance reports, all enemy positions were hit, and the Russians began to flee. Once the tanks completed their task, the infantry finally entered and fully took control of the village. What mattered most was not only capturing the village, but also doing it without losing a single soldier. Even though only a small number of soldiers took part, not one was lost. The infantry was well protected by the tank's fire and suffered no losses. All that was left was to go in, finish the job, and hold the position. It was crucial that this wave of assault did not come back. Everything went quite well. The mission was accomplished. The Russians were running, fleeing in panic. They had to be finished off, and if they were running, weapons had to follow them. Tanks and infantry searched basements, bushes, and every possible hiding place where the occupiers could be, because they know how to dig in. They checked possible shelters, basements, storage rooms, bushes, everything. Where had they fortified themselves? Usually wherever they had built defenses. After such a clash, it was hard to see anything. In fact, the hardest work was done by the infantry. The tanks tried to protect them from all sides. At one point, they wondered, was this village operation a trap? Would there be an attack from behind? They stayed alert and careful. The final task of the tanks was to clear the bushes at the edge of the village so that the infantry could enter. But by then, the occupiers had already brought FPV drones and regular drones. One vehicle managed to do its job, but the second couldn't, because the drones started flying, and the hunt began. It looked calm, but in fact, they were only waiting for this attack. They were waiting for the moment the Ukrainian soldiers would leave. Just as they were finishing the job, the infantry reported, "They are coming." At that moment, they used maximum camouflage to protect their vehicles and crews. This time, the drones failed in their attacks. An FPV drone can hit an infantryman from 200 to 300 meters, and in the same way, it can hit a tank. This was not like going alone, it was teamwork, and they finished the mission successfully without losses. Everything done during the liberation of this village became a huge motivation for the Ukrainian army. Even though small, this was a victory, not only for our units, but for everyone. They won this victory not only with weapons and equipment, but also with their minds, and they made the Ukrainian front even stronger. According to the latest reports from the Kupiansk front, the National Guard's Karadog Brigade repelled a Russian infantry assault in open terrain. Ukrainian soldiers say the Russian army repeats such infantry assaults almost every day. Their goal is to reach the forested areas behind the trenches and defensive lines, dig new positions there, and settle in. This tactic shows how simple yet ruthless Russian strategies are. Soldiers throw their lives away, launching frontal assaults across open fields, suffering huge losses. Each attack is not only a military maneuver, but also one of the most dramatic examples of a fight for survival. These open field clashes show that sometimes even the most basic rules of modern warfare are ignored. In a battlefield where drones and advanced reconnaissance systems are always overhead, advancing across bare fields is an extremely risky strategy, but Russian forces stubbornly continue with it. Meanwhile, Karadog Brigade soldiers remain on constant alert against these desperate attacks. They are not only defending their positions, but also fighting to put an end to this madness. This struggle has turned into a grinding war of attrition for both sides, with constant battles for every single meter of the front line. Friends, if you, like us, want Ukraine to win, write Slava Ukraina in the comments. The large-scale operation called Don't Be Sad is a striking example of how effective and daring operations the Ukrainian Special Operations Group can carry out behind enemy lines. According to the Special Operations Forces, a group of Ukrainian soldiers infiltrated enemy positions near the Russian border and carried out a swift and successful raid. The success of this operation was the result of careful preparation, flawless coordination between units, and the extraordinary professionalism of the operators. These tactics go beyond conventional warfare, striking the enemy at their most unprepared and vulnerable moments, infiltrating behind Russian lines, catching them by surprise, and withdrawing quickly forms the basis of such operations. The results were very satisfying for the Ukrainian side. The enemy's military power suffered a serious blow, valuable trophies were captured, and most importantly, priceless combat experience was gained under such harsh conditions. The Don't Be Sad operation was not just a military victory, but also proof of how advanced and flexible Ukraine's war strategy has become. These bold moves behind enemy lines provide psychological superiority that can affect the course of the war. They make Russia feel unsafe even on its own territory, giving Ukraine an important moral advantage. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications as we continue to provide the latest news. As of 8 a.m., the latest summary from the General Staff shows how intense the fighting has become on the front. In the last 24 hours alone, 139 clashes took place. Most of these were concentrated in the Pokrovsk, Novopavlivsky, and Limansky directions. Yesterday, Russia increased its airstrikes against Ukrainian territory, dropping 154 guided bombs. It also launched 23 bombs on the Kursk region. Beyond bombs, Russian forces carried out 5,770 suicide drone attacks and 5,177 artillery strikes. Of these, 86 were by rocket artillery systems. But Ukrainian defense forces did not delay in responding. Our air, missile, and artillery units struck key enemy positions, inflicting heavy losses. In the last day alone, 4 areas with concentrations of Russian troops, weapons and equipment, 1 command post, and 4 artillery batteries were successfully hit. An enemy ammunition depot was also destroyed, delivering a major blow to Russian logistics. This response played a critical role in keeping the balance on the front. A daily routine from the Devil Team officers of the 1st Separate Special Forces Unit of the Omega Special Forces Center of the Ukrainian National Guard. In Limansky, while chasing retreating Russians, 2 Ukrainian soldiers first found one of their rural hideouts. They secured it with a grenade and after the explosion, responded with gunfire to noises coming from inside. 1 magazine was emptied. The task was done. Another group checked the positions. Everything looked clear for now. This group also worked on clearing houses, searching everywhere one by one. Suddenly, noises came from a bunker. It was impossible to predict where they would come out from. With quick reflexes, the soldiers avoided an attack. Houses and forest areas were being cleared. Every house, every bunker, every tree was checked. The mission was tough, long, and dangerous. But Ukrainian soldiers bravely stood against every threat. In recent days, Russian forces' advance in Kharkiv had wrapped the region like a spider's web. Gaining confidence from every meter they captured, they attacked furiously to seize the entire area. For Ukraine's defense, the situation was becoming more critical by the minute. At this decisive moment, Ukraine's fearless NGU Kartia Brigade arrived in the region. With their arrival, the course of the battle suddenly turned. Instead of responding to the enemy's heavy assault with traditional methods, the brigade launched a counterattack using one of modern warfare's most effective weapons, FPV drones. These small, deadly machines in the sky struck Russian positions and troops with pinpoint accuracy. The Russian advance slowed, and their furious assault turned into panic. Kartia's clever move not only stopped the enemy's progress, but also gave Ukrainian troops on the front a huge morale boost. This operation once again proved how technological ingenuity can balance out the enemy's numerical superiority. Russian soldiers were advancing in the Grodovka area, Myrnorod direction. They were going to capture the area with a sudden assault, but during a patrol, an FPV operator spotted them. They heard the sound of the drone and tried to hide, but it was already too late. Kamikaze drones that arrived in the area neutralized them.